Down 2000 very early this week, and this is the hand where everything started going south. But keep this in mind, we will get back to that later. First I want to show you something. I open A9s suited from the button and recreational from small blind calls. The other recreational calls as well. And we flop a flush draw with an over card. Therefore, my plan is to bet here, and I'm betting like half pot to keep worse draws and pairs that will fold until river if we don't improve to call. Now the turn is queen, and I feel like I can continue applying pressure. So even if he calls, we are planning on betting the river. Well, now the river brings us the nuts, so we don't have to bluff anymore. Just to think how to get as much money in as possible. Well, we don't have to think about that for a very long time. When villain just ships it in against our nuts, we just have to make sure that we still have the nuts, and yeah, it was unfortunate caller. On the next hand, I get dealt pocket fives on straddle, and I call open after one caller, and we go to the flop four ways. The flop comes 4-7-8, and I very rarely do this, but I decided to donk lead here, so I decide to bet small here and recreational calls, original razor calls. On the turn we get really lucky. We get the straight. But here I decided to bet on a smaller size because I don't think that if we bet big we can get calls from anything but sets or straights or something like that. And I also think that if they were to have sets, they would have already raised on flop. So I'm pretty confident about my hand, and it's not very vulnerable. The river pairs the board, but I just don't think that he has both here, so I decide to just ship it in for value. So let's pray that he wants to make the call and doesn't believe our weird line, and he does. And what a hand! Top pair, and I think that guy is a reg, but maybe I got him confused with my donk play and my line in general. I think that was like really weird call, but I'll take it. 7 at Bankroll being on 7,030 bucks. I am playing in L300. By Bankroll management rules, I could actually go play on NL600, but to be honest, I didn't feel comfortable getting up just yet. So I decided that if I don't feel comfortable playing up there, why should I? So I will continue playing at NL300 until I feel more comfortable. Alright, then we get dealt ace queen off. There's a recreational limping from under the gun and an ISO to 9 bigs. There is a new guy on the table calling my raise, which doesn't indicate necessarily of a very strong player. And then there is another guy calling on the button and the limper folding. The flop comes ace high, but I decide to check what I do quite often out of position against several players. Or sometimes I bet, sometimes I check. This time I decided to check because I think that those players, both of the players behind me were kind of aggro. And none of them bet. And the turn is pretty much blank in my opinion. And my plan here is to bet big 2 times unless something weird happens. And something weird does happen immediately. The next guy raises me like little shy of 3x, And I've seen recreationals do that quite often with all kinds of garbage, or ace X, say ace 10 here or something like that. So obviously I'm not going anywhere yet. And the river is 10. So nothing should change here unless he was semi-bluffing with some sort of gut strut or something like that. But now he ships it in for like 1.6 times the pot. And even though my plan kind of was to call down here, but I just think that in general, when recreationals, or anyone for that matter, raise, turn and overbet jam river, I think that they have a really strong range there. And therefore I end up folding here. I'm not sure whether that play is right or not, but I just flick in the fold. And fair enough, he was bluffing with pocket sixes. Didn't feel that good, but what can you do? This hand came a couple of minutes after the ace queen hand. So I opened pocket eights from under the gun, and aggro player 3-bets me. I obviously call, and the flop comes 6 high. He bets 80% of the pot, and my read of the player was that, as said, that he's really aggro, and I'm not loving 80% bet there. Usually it screams strength, but I decided to call, and turn is queen. Now the villain checks behind, which feels, well, it feels like he's giving up. The river is 9. I could think about block betting here and getting called by ace king or something like that, but I decided to check. And now villain shoves it. And to be honest, I know that this line from these positions is underbluffed, but then again, why would he check that queen behind unless he has queens? I block 7, 8, so I make a crying call here, and I have to admit that the ace queen hand that happened a little earlier could have had an influence on me calling here. And he has aces, which was very well played by him, checking back on turn to get me call out with weak hands on the river. Nice play, not so nice play of me. Time to close the tables. By this time of week, nothing was going my way, and I was down a bunch. If I would have to estimate, I would say like maybe 2k or something like that. Well, to the next hand. I get dealt pocket 7s, which I obviously open. And I get 1 recreational calling, 2 recreationals calling, and 3rd recreationals calling. And the flop comes beautiful 2, 7, 10. So we have a mid set there. And of course, when I'm last to act, I can't just check behind. I want to build the bot. But I bet small to get calls from worse hand and maybe to get someone to go crazy. The turn brings 5 of clubs, which shouldn't change anything. If I had the nuts, I still have the nuts. And now the villain has behind like 150, and I want to get all the money in on the river. So I decide to size up quite a lot actually. I bet almost like 80%, hoping to get called. But we get min raised, or not min raised, but very close to being min raised. And I'm thinking here what to do. Should I just call and let him bluff, or if he's value betting or value raising worse, should I just ship it in expecting to get called. One of the reasons I would like to ship it in here is that if he really has value hand, he might get scared of some club or something like that. But then again, wouldn't he raise already on the flop? Okay, recreationals love to min raise on a turn when they have really good hand. So I decide to just call this time. I don't know, maybe I've had a hunch of what's going on here, but that's what I do, and I just call, thank God, because the guy was, well, he was raising with a flopped bottom pair there. But this time my play worked out just beautifully. This was a nice one. I get pocket fours on a big blind. Rake opens from under the gun, and I decide to call because there's a very aggressive recreational guy next to me. And he decides to 3-bet, which is not a huge surprise to me. And the original raiser thinks for quite some time and calls as well. So I obviously am calling as well because I get priced in. It's close though, but the guy was so out of line next to me that I thought I want to play against him. Flop ain't the best, so let's see what happens here. He thinks and thinks and checks. The other guy checks as well. What does that mean? In my opinion, that means that they don't have anything. Or maybe they could have like pair of, I don't know, 10x or pair of 8s or something like along those lines. But I see no merit in betting with my fourth pair here. So I check to the raiser, who decides to check again. And it goes checked around. And the river is 8. So there is now a 4-liner to a straight on board. I could start bluffing, but then again, I could have the best hand. So I decide to check. And now the really aggro guy next to me decides to bet like 1/3 of pot. And I started thinking, he could have a 8x, 9x, total random air, of course, but somehow I felt like he has something when he bets so small. So I don't think that I have the best hand here, but then again, I could swear that he never has queen here, because he would have bet the queen at latest on the turn. So I decide to raise him, and I don't have to raise big to get everything but queen to fold in my opinion, and he snap folds. So I don't know if I was bluffing there with best hand or not, but I really like the play. Alright, then I get dealt pocket rockets. 2 limps, and of course I ISO. And I ISO big because I'm out of position and because they are recreational. So I want to get as much money in as possible. Then I get basically min 3-bet from Maniac. I thought that if there would be a nicer way to call him, but let's just call him Maniac. I decide to min click it back. Basically to induce a raise from his bluffs, or if he were to have a good hand, he could. And I'm trying to figure out what to do here. Should I bet small? Should I check? Or what should I do? I don't want to bet big here because I think that his range still is so full of air. So this time I decided to check to him. I'm not sure if that's the best play or not, but that's what I decided to do. And let's see what he does. He checks behind. The turn is 8, shouldn't change anything, and I'm thinking about betting small, and I bet like 1/3, and he ships it in. So, and he has ace king. So this time the right way to get max out of the aggro guy was to bet. I guess my check on a flop had him thinking that I have nothing and he could just ship it in with ace king and I would fold. Or call with worse, I don't know. But this time it worked. Okay, so cutoff opens. I decide to 3-bet with king jack offsuit. The cutoff is a reg. In my opinion, somewhat solid reg. So, and obviously I 3-bet for value, and flop comes 4/4. I oftentimes like to just check behind, and that's what I decide to do. Every once in a while checking back is good in order to get more value out of worse hands, and on top of that I think that in GTO land that flop hits better on the pre-flop caller. So I decided to check, and turn is 9. Now Willem bets like half pot, and in my opinion half pot generally doesn't mean, if we were to have a really good hand, I think that he would want to value bet bigger, and therefore I don't think that he has a very strong hand, but on the other hand I don't see any reason on raising. So I call. And the river is 7 of hearts. 8-10 gets there. Well, that's pretty much it. Of course, if he had pocket 7s or something like a 9-7, now he's ahead. But to be honest, I'm not all that concerned quite yet. Now the villain tanks and tanks and tanks, so I will fast forward a bit to a spot where he decides finally to check. Now I'm basically sure that we have the best hand, and the only question is how much to bet. Because the hand was played as it was, I think that I can size up here and still get called by worse hands. Jack X is calling 1 out of 1, I'd say, and even worse hands like pocket 8, 9x, something like that, is getting curious when I check the flop behind. And villain thinks for quite some time and flicks in the call with nice 10 suited. Nice to check back value hands every now and then to get some extra value. Alright, and here we got dealt pocket kings. Recreational opens from middle position. We obviously 3-bet. I 3-bet on a bigger side because we are against a legit recreational and we are a bit deeper. Now 2 recreationals cold call my 3-bet, and the original raiser 4-bets to 130 bigs. Well, it looks like he's invested, and to be honest, I don't want to play this hand 4-way, so I think that the best option here is to just get the money in. Most probably the recreationals behind will just fold, but as said, I'm not loving... I don't love seeing flop 4-ways, so I ship it in and I get called from cold caller and the original 4-better, and they turn around ace jack suited and queen, so we get it in as 57% favor, which is pretty cool until the flop comes queen high. Well, we still have outs. At least 10 is out for us, but unfortunately we don't make it this time. It feels really, really bad, lose such a big pot, but then again, we only win that about 6 times out of 10, and 4 times out of 10 we lose it, so that's poker. But after that, to the results.
Alright, week 7 in books. I played around 10 hours and I have to say, it was a roller coaster, right? But at the end of the week, we ended up on green for about 300 bucks. So we booked a W, which I take on any given day. And the roll is now at around $7,300, which is nice. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done that yet. That would mean a world to me. Thanks for watching. Until next week.